sure how we met. Someone referred him, I think. I called him. He says, yes, I'll come. I was surprised. What he shared with us on that very first event, now he's not going to go exactly into that today, maybe some aspects, but here's what he thrilled us with, his focus. Nobody in your family had ever been in business, right? He's the first one. So he starts his business, fabricating a holster for concealed weapon because he didn't like anything out there. Now his friends love it, and he's very busy at that kitchen table doing this, so his wife kicked him out to the shed. But what was most remarkable to me is he wowed us with, he realized he had a business, but he didn't know anything about business, and he is an avid reader. He read, bought all these business books, and then he kind of distilled it down to 4 or 5 books, if I have this right, and out of those books, he set up a number of principles that he lives by, and he's focused on that. I don't know anyone more focused than Thomas. Once he puts his sights on something, it's going to happen. But he's very disciplined that way. And I'm thrilled to call him a friend. I'm glad he came today. He said yes. This is the third time with us. Let's all welcome Thomas Tedder.
As Nell said, Thomas Tedder, I founded, I'll go into my background a little bit. I was the founder of Alien Gear Holsters, Tedder Industries. When I was 19, I went to the Air Force. We've got an Air Force general here I just met a bit ago. I did computer maintenance mostly, servers, mainframes, things like that. And you know, it's kind of odd to full circle. We're selling a whole bunch of holsters to the Air Force, now a big contract to Air National Guard, going to buy a whole bunch of them. But so we just did hardware maintenance there, and I did 4 years in the Air Force. I became a contractor, did another 3 years there as a contractor. And then I went to, after 9/11 happened, up to New York, the northeastern area defense sector, to do some FAA military stuff, they're setting up to prevent another 9/11 essentially up there. And after that, I actually started my first business that didn't do very great. It didn't do bad, but I'll talk about that a little bit too. You know, there's kind of 4 things I'll touch on that I see a lot of people interact with me, pitching ideas or asking for feedback about their business, and I see a lot of the same things over and over. And as I think about it more, it kind of applies to all the stuff I've done. And so I sold the upholstery business. That didn't go so great, and I went to college, used my GI Bill. I did that in 3 years. That was probably the 3 best years of my life, because I'd worked a real job for 10 years, and then I just played a lot of video games and goofed off a lot, and it was still pretty easy. It's funny, you hear the kids complaining about the homework, and it's like I'm here 3 days a week, and it's not even all day. But that was a lot of fun, and I got a programming degree. I did that for about 3 months. I was sitting there at my desk looking out. It was a day like this, but it was like 65 out. Spring was just cracking, and I knew that I had no way to get out and enjoy the day. I was there behind the desk for the rest of the day, and I actually just quit my job. I had started making the holsters by that time, and it was sort of a side business, and I just kind of quit and went all in. You know, it started showing some promise, but I couldn't be chained to the desk anymore. And initially, I just started selling them to people I knew. He was pretty close on it. So I was at a Chuck E. Cheese with my kids, and one of them went running across the parking lot, and my gun fell out and went sliding across the parking lot. That was a very scary thing for me, and there's like people just staring like, what's this idiot doing? And so I wanted a better holster, and I couldn't find one for the gun I had. It was a newer model, and there was good holsters out there, just not for my gun. And so I bought a similar one and modified it. And when I finished with it, it looked like it came that way. And so I spent $100. I bought some scrap leather and some plastic, and I made one from scratch. And my friends saw it. I had another friend who was a cop, he wanted one, and I started making some for other people. And then I just, I put an ad on Craigslist, and I put some on eBay, back when eBay was bigger than Amazon still. And that wasn't that long ago. And so I started selling enough on eBay where it made sense to me that it was worth taking a risk. And I was in a position too where, I was debt free. I didn't have a lot of obligations financially. I had a good 6 months of living expenses saved up, so that allowed me to be able to take that risk as well. Then the rest is kind of history. In about 4 years, I think we pretty well owned the holster market. I'll get into some of those reasons why later too. There's one bigger holster company out there because they've got military contracts, and we're working on taking that down too right now. But it didn't take very long. Coming at it at the right angle. I don't want to steal the next slide's thunder, but it didn't take very long hitting certain principles to really take over the entire market. I remember there's one of the companies that we started, one of our biggest competitors when we first started. We went to a trade show, a big one, and these guys, they were just packed. And like a year or two later, we went back and it was complete crickets at their booth, and ours was the one that was packed. It just happened so fast. By the time they knew who we were, really, it was too late. It was over for them. So today, Tedder Industries employs about 200 employees. It has been closer to 350. Injection molding and CNC machines, things like that, have really made it so we can do a whole lot more with less people. So someone supervising the machine doing the work, ideally, throughout the day. So we do about $30 million worth of product a year, and that is through our website, the vast majority of that. There's some through Amazon and other areas, but probably 85% at this point is through our website still. And we intend to grow that a lot more through government contracts and things as we've gotten into that side. After Tedder Industries, I had actually sold about half the company almost 5 years ago now. So I own about 45%, and I just sit on the board and more of just an observatory role almost. And I got into real estate investing actually before I sold Tedder Industries. And the funny thing is I've made more money in real estate than I ever did in holsters, and it's just kind of this quiet thing off to the side that just kind of does its thing. Recently I've become a developer as well. I was working with a couple of partners, and I'm on my own now, so we've separated. I bought them out on that. So I'm doing a 125-acre development in Hayden. First 100 lots are finished as soon as the weather's warm enough for the asphalt to go down, and those lots are already sold to local builders, and got 500 more behind that. So that's mostly what occupies my time these days. And then also invest in some other business ventures, which I'll go over. So there's 4 things that I want to talk about. Like I said, people have been coming to me for years. A lot of young people or people who've never been in business who have an idea. I get solicited a lot for ideas and sometimes money, but kind of there's a lot of repeating things that I see. And so the first thing that I always, when someone's telling me about their idea now, the first thing I want to say is, I could try to ask questions to get this thing to scale. And it's like, that's a brilliant idea, but you're going to sell like 4 of those a month. So, don't put your life savings in that. It's the biggest mistake I see. So for me, any business that's worth anything is going to have the potential to scale. Plan things to death is the biggest problem. They just never get started because they're stuck in this planning stage. They want it to be perfect. And the old saying, the best made plans are laid to waste on the battlefield. You don't even know what you don't know. And you make your plans and it's all out the window anyway. So I see a lot of that. And also a lot of fear. It's scary. quitting your job, which you don't have to do, but you're putting your name out there, you're probably borrowing money on your house or something, or your savings to get going. It's scary. This is just big, and so many people don't look at this. You got to have something different. Everybody's out there asking for money. Every business is essentially asking people for money, for a service, a product, whatever it is they're selling. You're not the only one. Everybody else is asking for that customer's money too. What are you doing different? Because if you're not doing anything different, you're not going to get their money. You're just not. And you can blend in with a million other people. And then market aggressively. Just because you exist doesn't mean you're going to sell anything. And I'm going to spend a good amount of time on some marketing and some techniques that I've used that really I feel like aren't known that well and helped me a lot. You can have the best product in the world, and if nobody knows about it, how are you going to sell it to them? It doesn't matter how good your business is, how good it's run. You can have somebody that has an inferior product at a higher price, and if they're out marketing you, they're going to win, they're going to lose. So regarding scale, I'll talk about that and with some examples through some of my business experience that I've had. So with gun holsters, that was a scale that was really big, really fast because of the internet. I could ship that anywhere in the country. There's dealers all over the country. It's a uniquely American thing, concealed carry, but it's a big country. So eventually we did run out of scale, and that's why we're getting into the police and military things, because that's a global market. Every city in the world has a police force. Every country has a military. So there's a lot of scale there, and that's the reason it works so well. At first, I'd sell like 10 holsters in a day, and it's like, all right, that's cool. But eventually, you're selling 100 a day, and now I've got employees, and I've got overhead. So, you can scale anything. A plumber can scale. He can say, I want to make $1 million a year. And if he just wants to work as the guy who's gluing all the pipes and stay local, he's never going to do that. He should pick a different business. But if he's gonna be willing to work and grow a business, a plumber can make $1 million a year. And he can't be the one doing the work for $100 an hour. He's going to have to hire an employee, pay him $40 an hour, and charge $100, and then he's going to have overhead after he gets a few more. You can make, say he's making 20 grand a year on a plumber. He can get so many plumbers, and 20 plumbers, and he's making a good living there. But now he's going to have overhead. It's going to cut in back. He's going to have to say, I'm going to have to be in Tri-Cities, Spokane, Bonners Ferry, Sandpoint. He's going to have to manage that. So this is, it's just something to think about from the start. How are you going to scale in it to meet your goals? And maybe that means you're going to be working in multiple cities with multiple locations, or maybe you should switch your plans and do something different. I like widgets that can ship by the post office. Get a lot of scale that way, pretty easy, and you just have to get found on the internet to do so. I like real estate a lot. I call that infinite scale. You never run out of that. That's so much. Jeff Bezos would go broke buying real estate if he wanted to. He could buy a couple islands and seriously dig into his money pretty quick. There's more than anyone can ever scale out of. And the cool thing about that is there's a lot of zeros on the end of the transaction too. So you pull a percentage off. Most business is done based off of percentages. You're not going to sell something in your store unless you can make 30, 40%. You got money tied up in it. Real estate's kind of the same way. The real estate agent's going to make his 3%, the buyer and the seller. Everybody's making their cut on it. But it's if you can do more transactions with all those zeros, you can scale big time. Kids ask me what they should get into in business. I always tell them real estate. There's just no end to scale on that. The Gulf Islands is a cool example. It's right over here, actually. There's a guy, an engineer that worked with me at Tedder Industries for a number of years, and he told me he'd like to start a virtual golf thing one day. And I had actually a tenant in one of my units that does that, so I know it does well. And I told him to write a business plan, and told him a couple times actually. actually. I nagged him a little bit, like, write a business plan and show it to me. So he did, and it was actually really good. So I funded it, and it's over here running right now. We went partners on that, and the scale on that is cool because you can do multiple cities. So it's made enough money this year that it's paying for the opening in North Spokane with twice the space and twice as many units, and don't have to pay out of pocket. So it's scaled to Spokane now, and then we can do Sandpoint, and you could go basically across all the northern cities and do as many as you want. You can franchise it. So that's the first thing I looked at when we were looking at this, when we were writing business plans and scenarios about how far it could go. And my first words to him was, I'm only doing this if there's a minimum of 10 stores. You're not going to do 2 of these and just get happy on a couple $100,000 a year and kind of semi-retire. And so there's a lot of scale involved in that. Cabinet manufacturing. So this is cool. This is an idea that I just had a couple months ago, and I'm starting a business on that. I'm flying to Salt Lake City next week to look at some equipment. Just massive scale involved. So every house in the world, except for maybe some shanties in the jungle, have cabinets in them. And I build houses. I built probably 20 houses last year, and we had to wait 16 weeks for cabinets. And I'm going to talk about that in another slide too. This time delivery stuff. We had to wait 16 weeks for cabinets. It showed up damaged and cost $20,000. And I own CNC machines. I used to run a whole army of them making holsters, and I have 2 in my workshop at home right now. And I know the materials are very low. If you can scale that, you're scaling without your labor increases going. And so it ticks all the boxes for me. It scales really good. It's got low labor, and it's a massive market. It's good. You know, it's something called TAM, total area market size, and just always look at the TAM before you get into a new business. And that's just it's just the biggest thing most people are doing. So the getting started discussion is it's a pretty big one. You know, it's you just got to get going. When I first started making the holsters, I just listed them on eBay, and I never thought it could turn into the sort of business it did. Like Nell said, I'm not from a family that had any accomplishments of anything, and no college, no business ownership, anything. And so if I hadn't just started getting some sales coming in, I don't think I would have had the motivation to see it through the way I did. By just listing a few, that, you know, I didn't wait for it to get perfect. The first few holsters I made were horrible by my standards now. I carved them out with a buck knife, and I took to make it try and look like it was die cut. I would sand down the edges with sandpaper, and I took like this Sharpie to try and round the edges and make it look like it was actually die cut. And the plastic that I was molding, I was using my wife's oven, and I heated it up, and I put a piece of foam on, I put the gun down, a piece of plastic, a piece of foam, and a book, and I stood on the thing and held myself down at the counter. And that's how I molded the first holsters. And I sold them, and people were buying them, and they weren't the best thing out there. They were cheaper, and I was delivering it the same day, and some people took a chance. I don't know why, but a few did, and that motivated me to go further. So I took the profits from that, and I bought some pawn shop equipment. I bought a bandsaw, so now I'm cutting out leather on a bandsaw. And then I bought like a belt sander, so I'm sanding the plastic on a belt sander instead of by hand. And you know, like $60 used tools, and but just getting going, even those tools sucked. But that enabled me to buy even better tools. And today we buy $250,000 injection molding machines with cash, because it's led me down that path to where I got started early. I never could have started if I had to start with a $250,000 injection molding machine, but just that incremental increase of just getting going. And it gave me confidence as well too to keep doing what I was doing. So you know, I would put boxes of holsters in the back of my wife's truck and just drive all over Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and go into every gun store and getting orders and fulfilling. And there was a lot of mistakes, a lot of them, and I would take that feedback and fix it and just keep moving forward. And by the time you're big, you got all those mistakes mostly ironed out. So just don't wait for things to be perfect. Just start going. I tell people at work, give me 50% today. This is what I tell the over planners. I think technically they're called just planners, but I call them over planners. Just give me 50% today. We can get the rest tomorrow. We're never going to be 100% ever. That's resting on your laurels, being lazy. So if we can never get to 100%, why are we working towards that? We can do an incremental change again tomorrow and keep working towards that. Gulf Island was the same way, you know. Taylor was real scared. He was scared about that. He was giving up a good job and not knowing if that was going to work. And you know, we just got going. We set out some equipment. We got some golf clubs, and we didn't know how big to make a booth or anything like that. And I'm standing there while he's swinging the club and seeing how close I can be without flinching, and how wide does this thing need to be for lefties and righties, and to actually make it work. And we just bought a projector and bought a piece of equipment and set it up, and it didn't work. Maybe we're out $5 or $10 grand, but we just went at it and experimented and got going. We rented a space, signed on the line, set up, and people came in. It's booked solid. I can't even use my own simulators unless I book it a week in advance. And real estate's the same thing too. You know, everybody's seen these get rich quick things on the real estate, right? That stuff's not a scam. There's probably scam artists out there. That's real stuff. I was a CEO of Tedder Industries, managing, you know, 30 million in revenue and several hundred employees, and there was a guy on YouTube, Phil Pustiowski, and I was watching a lot of his videos, and it's like, this guy's pretty cool, he knows what he's talking about. So I called him up, and I get to him on the phone. It's like, no, I want to talk to Phil. So I actually got Phil on the phone and talked to him and said, teach me your system there, teach me your plan, and I don't want to get handed off to somebody else. And so he says, okay, I'll do it, but you got to give me, I think it was $40,000, you want to work directly with me. It's a lot of money. And I sent him a $40,000 wire, and he sends me this big old thick book thing, which I kind of skimmed through, didn't get too deep in it, mostly just watched his videos and talked with him. He gives me a template for a letter, and I mailed out, hired somebody. She wrote all the envelopes handwritten so that they would open them. I stuffed them all, or she stuffed them all, mailed them out. He's like, use this software, it tells you how to find the landowners of apartments. Mailed, I think, 600 letters or something like that. And a few days later, a guy calls me, says, I got this apartment for sale. Offered him $700,000 for it. It was a little bit run down, the rents were way low. He took it, paid $700,000, rehabbed it, sold it, I owned it maybe a year and a half, sold it for $1.8 million. I made almost $1 million after the rehab cost on that. And it was just by getting started, just by doing something. And I'm sitting here as a CEO of a company, and I had the time to go do that. And it didn't take a lot of time, not very much. I paid somebody to stuff the envelopes for me. All I did was take maybe 10 or 12 calls I got, and actually put some other deals together out of that same batch as well. Bought a house for $400,000 and sold it, made 70 grand on it from that same batch of letters. I haven't been doing that lately because I've just been doing other things. I wanted more just to see if it would work, I think, more than anything else. But it's real. You just get out there and do the work, and things that other people are doing, you can do it. You can absolutely. That's the same thing with the development. I've never developed before. Most people do 3 or 5 lots, and I did 100, and it's almost done. It's beautiful. Streets and sidewalks, and I just got some project management software, hired a good engineer, sat down and put it all in, tracked everything, became a project manager, and over the last 2 years, and it worked. Almost enough profit from the first 100 lots that the other 500 lots are free to me, almost. There'd be a little bit left to pay, but it just turns into pure profit on the next section. So the only thing between me and anyone else who wants to be a real estate developer is I just did it. So keep saying that, it's true. Cabinet business is the same thing. I had the idea about 2 months ago. I've already got a CEO hired, a guy that used to work with me. He's a lean manufacturing expert, and I reached out to some equipment manufacturers in Europe and locally, some distributors. We're set up already with tours in Salt Lake City next week. We're going to go through 4 cabinet shops and look at all of their equipment and the lean shops that are going to be similar to what we're doing. And these guys are helping us. They don't care, we're not competing directly with them down there. The equipment guy's happy to help because he's going to get a big sale out of this probably. And that fast, there's a cabinet business shaping up here, and I've already got the real estate set aside, and all we got to do is basically learn how to make the cabinets, which is funny. We're starting a cabinet business, and we don't even know necessarily how to make it, but we know this machine does 90% of the work, and my partner's an engineer, and we're smart guys. I made one on my CNC machine at home. And we did it in like 2 hours at my house, and it looks just like a cabinet we bought that parked right next to it as a template. So we're just getting going, and the only way that it'll fail is if we fail as leaders and business owners in there. So it's going to the equipment will be paid for in the first year, guarantee it, and good profit distributions the second year. So here's another thing, the value proposition. You know, it's like the elevator pitch. You should be able to say what you're doing in like 10 seconds before the elevator gets to the next floor. If someone asks you what you do, why should they give you your money? You should have that dialed down to an art, like you just spit it off, 3 sentences or whatever. It's 10 seconds. And then you've got one that's a little bit bigger. Maybe it's the 20-second explanation. And then you got the hour-long explanation. But you should be able to do this. So there's a famous saying that I hate, and it's a quality, price, or speed. Choose one or choose 2. That's a bunch of crap. Pick all 3 every time, and I win. So to me, the easiest value proposition is price to get started. You know, you're going to take a lower profit, but you can get more scale doing that. I feel like that's one of the things that really set me going. When I started, the first holster brand was Old Faithful Holsters. I was selling this for half as much as the competitors. They were about $90, and I was selling mine for like $45, $50. I had maybe $10 in the holster, and my competitors had only about $5 in theirs. They were using much crappier leather from Mexico, crappier plastic. I was using materials that cost twice as much. My cost of goods were twice as much as theirs, and my holster was half the price. And so that was the easiest thing in the world to collect money from customers. As a business, we're sitting there with our hand out asking people for money. It's a lot easier when I'm saying, mine's better and it cost half as much. That's the easiest value proposition I've ever heard of, thought about. It's what I'm going to do in the cabinet business. I'm going to sell mine for less. So it's simple math. You know, I've heard people say, well, my time's worth more than that. I'm not going to cut my prices. You know, I'm going to make $100 an hour. I'm not doing anything less. Think about, I'm trying to explain, like, think about if you could, say, make $50 an hour, and how many more are you going to sell? You're going to sell 10 times more. You're not going to do all the labor yourself. You're going to have to hire people to do it for you. So yeah, your time is worth maybe more than that, but there's another way to get it than you sitting here with sweat dripping from your brow. Get some machines, hire employees to do it, and grow the business and scale it that way. So price is my favorite value proposition because it's not like you're making less money. If you do it right, you scale more and you're making more. I figured when I was starting that if I could sell 1 million holsters in a year, then I could raise the price $1 and make an extra $1 million a year on that, right? And so when I got in, actually I had lowered my price even further. I got into, when I started Alien Gear with that brand, that was $30 and the same price on materials. but I got CNC machines. So when I first started, I could make a holster every 15 minutes, 4 an hour. My best guy could do 2 an hour, and my average guy could only do 1 an hour. I got CNC machines at a programming degree. It didn't translate perfectly, but well enough I figured it out. And these were old homemade machines I bought from a local engineer, so there wasn't fancy software. I had to actually program the G code in these things. But I programmed them, and then so the machine's cutting out the holsters, the plastic part, which was the time-consuming part. And it went down from an average of 1 hour to 8 minutes. They were making them faster than I could without that equipment. And that was just massive scale. I took almost all of the labor out, and then I sold the holsters for $30. And my competitors were still, they're starting to come down in price, you know, it's probably still in the 70s, and just obliterated them. And then, you know, being different with my product, that's always great. If you've got some invention or something that makes you better, your product is different than others and you can protect that, that's amazing. But you don't need that. I didn't have that at first. I had a business, I mean, we were probably doing 10 million in revenue annually before I had a real innovation that I could protect with a patent. But when I did that, my sales doubled overnight. And we did some further patents and made massive gains again shortly after that. So combined, it's a really powerful thing. Delivery times is something that I think is easy for a business for a value proposition, especially with COVID. After COVID, everything, the whole world went to hell. There's no customer service anymore. There's not enough employees, and so nobody cares. They can quit and go somewhere else. If you can manage your business to have a better lead time, to me, that's a value proposition that doesn't cost me anything as a business owner. In fact, it saves me money because first of all, I get more orders when my lead time is down. But second of all, when my lead times go up, I start stumbling over roadblocks in manufacture. When we start introducing more inefficiencies, we start getting WIP, work in progress. It's a kind of a lean term. We just start bogging down when our lead times increase. And then you've got angry customers. You try to find those orders and bring them up. But if we're running fast lead times, that's something that I know for a fact that we do a lot of business simply because we can deliver when our competitors are not delivering. Just like with the cabinets, you know, a 16-week delivery time. They can be made on a CNC machine. The whole kitchen can be made by one guy in 1 day, and they're 16-week lead times. And we're trying to get them from Chicago to save on that even. So I feel like that one's a freebie. And then quality too, that's another huge value proposition. And so it comes down to that price, speed, or quality. And that's why I'm saying pick all three. Because the speed time I think is free, and the quality I think is free. It costs me just as much to make a holster with defects as it does to make one that doesn't have any. It's gonna cost me more actually because somebody's gonna call me back and tell me what their problem is, and I'm gonna have to pay shipping, and I've got a mad customer now. But just the actual manufacturing process, it doesn't cost me anything more to make a high quality product as a low quality product because it's designed to have the quality in it that you're expecting. The low quality comes from defects that are not latent, it's defects that are introduced during the manufacturing process. And it's that's our job as a leader to set that up right, to train people to create processes that make it so you can't do it the wrong way. It's called poke yoke. It's a Japanese term. And so if you have to assemble this part on a jig where it only goes in this way, now I can't do it wrong. But if you give them just no jig and it can be spun around and done the wrong way, that's my fault as the leader for not giving them a process that works better. So quality is free, and now I'm hitting all three because these, you know, speed and quality are free to me. All I got to do is try to undercut somebody on price, and I'm hitting all three. So other than that, your value propositions, you know, there's a million of them out there, but if you can get your innovation in that, you're going to destroy anybody that's against you. The cabinet business is the same thing. I analyze that. You know, it's funny that I talk about percentages. I see it everywhere. It's the same COGS, the cost of goods is the same as it is in the holsters. You know, it's 20 to 30% for just the materials. And then you've got all your laborers eating another 20, 30% or so, and then your overhead is your profits and overhead are coming out of the rest. So the same thing, I can undercut on the price and I'll scale it and we can deliver faster and in higher quality. CNCs, that's the beauty of using equipment like that. Your quality just goes way up because there's no wrong way to do it. You're running the same file all day. It works better. And so marketing, I'll spend a little bit of time here. This is more of my last piece that I like to talk about, or I wanted to talk about today. So, like I said earlier, you've got the product and you've got a great business and you're a good leader and all of that. But if you're not marketing, no one can buy from it. My favorite quote ever in marketing is people don't want a 1/4-inch drill, they want a 1/4-inch hole. Nobody owns a drill bit because they want a drill bit. They own a drill bit because they want a hole in something. So sell the solution, not the tool. And that's what I like to say, always sell the solution. If you go to Mac's website, Apple, they know what they're doing. They're the biggest computer company in the world for a reason. You don't go to their homepage and see 128-bit microprocessor and 56 gigs of RAM or whatever the specs of this computer are. They're showing you this amazing picture that they took and, you know, of a balloon in the background is all blurry and it looks real cool. They're selling you, like, you get to take great pictures with our stuff. So I see this all the time in marketing. They're stuck on the specs of what their thing is. And it's because you're dealing with that. You're out-speccing your competitors and you're proud of this. The customer just wants a hole in something, so don't get stuck on that. So Nels talks about books. I read marketing books. I didn't read a lot of business books. I did bring in a lot of leadership consultants. We had hundreds of employees. We raised everybody up from within. And usually they were bad leaders when you do that. They don't have any skills and you're just saying, here, go supervise somebody, and you've never supervised anybody before. It's like I'm a better parent on my 4th kid than my 1st kid, I can tell you that. So hadn't done it my first time. So we would bring in people every year and train our employees, and I would sit through all of that with them as well, so we could all speak the same language. We were talking analogies or things they learned in class. That's the extent of my business training. I think lucky that I was able to do well in that. Not everybody is, but I wanted to learn about marketing and advertising, branding. And that's where I spent most of my time. So when I started out, I knew I had to advertise and knew that was a way that it was going to have to be done. But I was losing money on my ads. Could not figure it out why. I just kept losing money, and I spent $1,000 on this magazine ad, and nobody would buy a holster from me from it. So one day I had an idea. It's like, I'm going to find out why these ads aren't working. So I took a stack of magazines, big stack, and I cut out all the ads for holsters and all the magazines, all gun magazines, and some of the ads for some the handgun manufacturers too. And I scanned them all in, and there's a website at the time. They didn't do ad testing. I think they do because of us, and I'm not just making that up. I really think they are because of us. So it was usertesting.com, and they sold user testing for your website. And I got these 10 people or so to my website, and I said, I know you're here to tell me how to make my shopping cart better and all that, but I don't care about that. I want you to look at these ads. And they did. And so I said, look at these 10 ads. What's the first one you see? The first one you notice. What images do you like in these ads? What images don't you like? What words are standing out? I would say things like, look at this ad for 5 seconds, turn your head and tell me what you remember. And I came away from that with 5 things that was repeating across all of the users. I made an ad, a full page ad, and I put it in a magazine, and it paid for itself in the first day. The rest of the month was gravy. And we were able to continue using these principles in our marketing and advertising just from that. That's probably the single best thing I ever did as far as marketing and advertising goes. And to prove it works too, my son, He's 19 now. When he was 12, he did an internship in marketing. I had him doing internships in the summers through all the departments. And one of the guys taught him how to use Photoshop, rudimentary level here. But he took these 5 things that we have, these 5 things going every ad. And he did that. And when I saw the ad, I tried not to smirk. It looked comical. But we user tested it against all of our competitors' ads. And his ad won handily. We actually ran the ad, and it got a higher click-through rate than any of the competitors, like some ads we were testing it against. We A/B testing, we always do that. And so his rudimentary, crappy ad beat out all the competitors' ads that had all the pizzazz and the flashy marketing stuff. And his had the principles that we know people look for. And I'll tell you something, the graphic, no offense if any of you are graphic artists in here, but they come out of school, every one I've ever hired, they come out of school and they want to use all black backgrounds, they want to use all caps, it looks better, it looks pretty, and they might have won an award in school for in their little symposium where they were competing against their students, the other students, but I'm telling you, it converts lower. Never use negative fonts. That's white letters on a dark background because it's hard to read. And you know, the funny thing is, we've known this since like the 1800s from newspaper ads. The rules haven't changed for like 200 years. White letters on black backgrounds are hard to read. All caps are hard to read. And so those are some of the things that we learned. You want to have your logo prominent, dead center. They've got to see your ad 20 times before they're going to buy from you. And this is one of these books. They're going to need to see your ad 20 times before they buy from you. And how do they know they're seeing your ad the 5th time, the 7th time, if they don't even know it's your ad? You could be advertising for your competitor. They could just think they need this widget and go to your competitor and buy it. For us, a very important thing is a human using the product. That's always just tested way, way better than any ad that doesn't have a human using the product. In our industry, price is important. We convert way better if we can put a price in there, but that's because of our value proposition of price. They instantly know, hey, that's in my price range, and I like that price. We've had people comment in testing like, I don't know if that's a $100 holster. I don't know if it's a $10 holster. I'm not going to buy some piece of junk, or I'm not going to buy some expensive thing. So it doesn't work in all areas, but test it. And a flag for us, our customers are very patriotic, so it's a flag in our ads helps conversions as well. And then, so getting to that, I would say you got to do your A/B testing. You got to make 2 ads, make them exactly the same, and change one thing, and then measure and see which one did better. So this is very important. You have to ask every single customer where they heard of you, or else you don't know what ad did what where. You have no idea of knowing if the $10,000 you just gave somebody for a marketing campaign did anything. So if you're online, it's a checkbox at checkout. If it's your service, it's at the counter when they're paying you, whenever. At some point, I always ask every customer who ever gives me money where they heard of me. Always. I never skip that step. And so with your A/B testing, now you're testing that. And any good experiment has a control and has a variable, but you want one variable, not 2, because now you don't know what change made the difference. So just change one thing. Maybe the guy's smiling in this ad and he's serious looking in this ad. Your logo's a little bigger, but you're going to get one that works better than the other, throw the other one away, and make another example. And the cool thing is actually run 20 of those at the same time, and you're only changing, you got to know what you changed in each ad. But you can run 20 of those, 30 of them, whatever, and see exactly click-through rates. And I get the new graphic artist in and I prove them wrong. You got to stay on them, because the first time you turn your back, they're going to see. I mean, I find it 7 years later. And there was a new guy, hot shot we hired, and he was really good. He did a lot of great stuff, but he was doing the ads, which I know breaks our rules that don't work, because I've got math, not a graphics degree to prove me. And we were in a meeting with the marketing team, and he's saying, you're wrong on this. I've been doing this. I know what I'm doing. You got to do it like this. I said, all right, go A/B test it. Test yours and test mine, and come back next month and tell me which one worked. And he came back the next month, and it's like, you're right. It's not an art, it's a science. There's art in the pizzazz and how you make it look, but the conversion rate is 90% science and 10% art. So positioning, I recommend 4 books to people. This is the first one that I recommend you read, is because there's like an order. Positioning, and then branding, and then marketing, and then making your ad. So first is positioning, and the reason why is you got to know who you're selling to first. Before you get into branding your product, if you've made a brand for the wrong market or the wrong audience, then you're going backwards again. Figure out your position first. And I also like to say, I'll try and wrap it up here pretty quick. I like to say you can be, the more vertical you are, as in how specific you are and who you're targeting, the more likely you are to sell something. But you're going to run out of scale sooner. The more horizontal that you go, the more products and services that you offer, the more scale available to you, but the less likely you are to sell to a specific customer. It's I can pull anything at random and give the example, like a used car salesman probably has a mechanic shop in the back to fix his cars, right? He can also offer services to people who are needing their cars worked on, and now he's going to make the revenue from both of those customers. But at the same time, if somebody wants their car worked on, they're going to say, who's going to do a better job working on my car? You know, Brad's used car lot or Johnny's automotive service. Probably if it's a big problem, I'm going to go to Johnny's automotive service because that's all he does. He's got to be better at it. So when you're positioning, I always say consider that. How much are you going to bring into your market that you're going to target? And don't get too broad with it. Don't go so narrow that you run out of customers and you're not making enough income. So just think about that. But positioning this is a very good book, and it's kind of small up there. That's Al Rise. It's the best marketing author I've ever read. And then, so after you know who you're going to target, Al Rise also wrote this book, 22 Immutable Laws of Branding. Branding it's how you answer your phones. It's what your truck looks like when you pull up to a customer's house. It's the uniform you're wearing. It's your logo. It's your ads. It's everything. Everything that you do to represent yourself to the outside world is branding. And some people do it really good, and some people do it really bad. Spend some time on this. I recommend not using a consultant to do your logos and things like that. I tried that and it did not work. I got charged a lot of money for something I didn't like. I recommend like 48 hours logo or something like that. You're going to get 1,000 submissions in like 3 days, and some kid in the Philippines designed Alien Gear's logo for like $100, and it's great. We still use it today. It's a numbers game. If you go hire your local advertising agency, they're great at selling you ads and marketing and getting that out there, and they're going to help your business. But you got 1 or 2 guys who are working on your logo, and if you go to a website, you're going to have 100 people working on your logo. And only the winners, the top 2 or 3, are going to get paid. And you can spend $1,000 or $10,000 if you want. You can get even more people looking at it. So I highly recommend creating your logos and things like that through an online service that is going to just get a ton of attention, a ton of eyes on it. And then marketing, Real Marketing is like the best marketing book ever. I think colleges actually use this as a textbook these days. There's a million ways to market and advertise, and there's a million free ways to do it. Read this book. If you're only going to read one, read that one, but I recommend backing up and reading Positioning and Branding first. And then any advertising book, honestly, this is one I like, but there's not like a secret sauce there. There's some key concepts about, play on emotion, not on logic. People buy on emotion, things like that. You're going to pick up some of that in these books, but there's not, I don't feel like, a specific formula for advertising that you're going to learn from a book that is going to do you a lot of good, because you're going to learn, I feel, from A/B testing more than anything. This is going to be a good starting point. Get some of these ideas and put them together and start from there. Look at some competitors' ads and pull some of their concepts. Don't have too much pride to steal ideas from your competitors, because they're doing it from you. Guarantee you they are. So those are 4 books I recommend. That's it. Talked about those things, and I have maybe a couple minutes for questions. That's up to Nels. I don't know.
Can you spend a couple minutes afterwards for?
Yeah, I can do questions as long as you want, Nels.
Okay, cool. Then a little bit. So we bring in really incredible guest speakers like Thomas for one reason. They've enjoyed some success, but they have certain insights, because really business is business. The only difference is scale, what they've been able to do with it. You can tell Thomas has done a lot with that. I ask that they speak about something they're most passionate about, because that's always a great presentation, and to share at least one nugget. As you look about the business community, and is there this one question like, why aren't they doing this one thing they do so much better? That's that golden nugget that everybody wants to walk away with. Well, Thomas just dropped a payload of golden nuggets today, and he's different every time he comes here. Just thrilled to have him. So, in the interest of time, a couple things. We have that early morning meeting, the incubator series tomorrow. I guess I'm hosting it. I was just told, so I'll be there. It's growing. Here's what I really want to plan. I'm kind of a big picture guy. I'm not really good with details. Big pictures. I don't have small thoughts. It's always been a problem in my life. I don't want to go into detail about Project Unite, but it's probably the most spectacular event that will ever take place where we live here. Certainly the biggest project I've ever thought of. And it's simply going about uniting all 6,500 businesses in Kootenai County, and that can be like herding cats, but there's a purpose to this. First of all, we live in an area that the culture is pretty much the same. Everybody loves living here. I call it a Disneyland theme park we get to live in. I don't know the community more perfect. And Kootenai County in itself is kind of like an island, with a lot of people with a common interest, community. They're very community driven. So that being said, as we look to the future, having stepped out of COVID, and now we're looking to the future, some say it's going to be pretty nasty, some say not so much, but I'd rather prepare for the worst. So it is not just uniting the business community, it's actually having function, something relevant. We want to examine the different components of what could happen nationally and locally. How does it affect our businesses? How does it affect our communities? What are those components? And then we want to set up a think tank for each component. So we're talking a couple dozen think tanks here, and let our businesses participate in their own solutions. Can you imagine the think tank that Thomas Tedder's in? You'd want to be a part of that. One of our newest friends, Wayne, he blows my mind as well. Get to meet this guy. He's in. And these think tanks, as the solutions develop, we'll be sharing it with the rest of the community. And thankfully, we have a good working relationship with all the government agencies. County, the city mayors, the sheriff, so on and so forth. We even work with the chambers. Together, we can create something that's never been done before. That excites me. Watch out, don't stand next to me, because if I get a what if thought, I'm off on what if this takes place. And that's the way I see this. So the thing I want to share with you is I appreciate you being here today. and you have any ideas that you wish to share, something of relevance, because none of us has the time to just fiddle away. We want to be hands-on, we want relevance, we want to see action, and we want a better community. So if you do, understand that this group today, within a couple months, it's going to fill the place. Joseph is going to kick us out of here because there's just too many of them. By the way, Joseph, do you mind standing? Joseph owns 4+1, and he's been very gracious. He invited us over here, and I don't think he gets as much appreciation as he should. So thank you for that. His wife, Kim, right? Kim? Yeah, she left earlier. She said, tell everyone I was here. So that, I think, is pretty much it. Just understand, things are moving fast with Project Unite. And input from the business community is just overwhelming. And that just thrills me to no end. And we'd love to see you back. Bring someone with you, grow your sphere of influence, and thank you for being here. And let's hear for Thomas. He threw a lot of good names today.